Hello. Welcome. We're just letting people connect. Just giving it a minute to connect. We are recording this meeting, so I wanted to let you know that this will be recorded in case you need to go back and look up any information. We had several people sign up. We do have a couple coming in from the waiting room, so we'll wait just a minute. Okay, I want to be aware of your time. I know time is precious and we are all busy, so we are going to go ahead and start. I did announce that we are going to be recording this. We have had people request that we send them the recording, so we will plan on recording this. If you have questions, we are pretty small, so go ahead and just interrupt me or ask your questions as we go, and we will just kind of go ahead and go through this. So I want to thank you for coming today. I also want to thank you for all that you do to support school counselors. As administrators, we work closely with our teams, with administrators and school counselors, and I appreciate all that you do to support them in their role as professional school counselors. The purpose today is to give a brief overview of our board rules and the school counseling model, the expectations of school counselors, the assurances that school counselors are doing the school counseling model, and just to kind of go through that as they prepare for formal reviews, but also just as they're doing their day-to-day jobs. So in Utah, we have a couple of board rules related to school counseling. The first board rule is R277-462, which says that we have a school counseling program. We have a college and career readiness planning process. We have school counselor to student ratios, and we'll talk about those in a little bit. And then we also have school counseling program accountability. The other board rule is R277-464, which is school counselor direct and indirect services. And so this basically says that school counselors are going to spend 85% of their time in direct services to students. Some of those fields are collaborative classroom instruction, the CCR plans, dropout prevention efforts, including social emotional supports, and providing support for students' needs consistent with the program. Do you want to share your screen? Is it not sharing? Oh, I'm so sorry, guys. I thought I was sharing my screen. Let me do that real quick as I'm going through. Okay, do you see my screen? Perfect. Now that I'm doing that, it's not letting me flip through. So in Utah, we do have a Utah College and Career Readiness School Counseling Program model, which is really a benefit to school counselors in Utah because this model is board approved. We can back up with data and other information sources our program and why we do what we do. So I really love the school counseling model. It has changed recently in 2019. It used to be the comprehensive guidance and career college and career program. It's changed to the college and career readiness program. And in the model, we'll just kind of go over some of the standards of that. It talks about who we are as leaders and advocates, what we do with our systemic practice, how we do it, and then the why it matters with our equitable outcomes. We have several standards in the model, and those standards fit under these different questions on the theory and framework of our model. We also have mindsets and competencies in the model that fit under the who am I, where do I fit, where am I going, and how do we get there. Those mindsets and competencies are social and emotional development, multicultural and global citizenship development, life and career development, and academic and learning development. So in Utah, our school counseling ratios are currently 1 to 350. So to qualify for funding, under R277462-4, we have to have a school counselor for at least one school counselor for every 350 students. That is done by LEA level. So sometimes in LEAs, you might have a big district like Alpine, where some of the schools might have a higher ratio and some of the schools might have a lower ratio. So again, that's done by the LEA level, just so you're aware of that. We also have our school counseling program, Accountability. School counselors fill out this self-evaluation every year and add that to their evidence box in their evidence file. They are evaluating themselves and their program and how the program is being run. And then every 3 years, this evaluation is conducted by the LEA. If you're a charter, oftentimes charters will combine with other charters to do this or combine with a local school district. And then every 6 years, the formal review is conducted by one of the USBE school counseling specialists. So that would be right now myself or Michelle Glightly, who's also on this webinar. So R277-464 is our school counselor services, direct services and indirect services board rule. And like we talked about in the beginning, 85% of school counselors' time needs to be spent in direct services to students. So these are in-person interactions between school counselors, classroom instruction, career literacy, our CCR plans, individual student planning, social emotional supports. And then 15% of school counselors' time is spent in indirect services. And that could be things like program management, advocacy and outreach, collaboration, consultation, and referrals. Does someone have a question? Okay. So as we go through that, direct services include activities that promote a whole child approach to academic learning. So our mindsets and competencies, life, career, multicultural, global, and social emotional. We talked about some of those examples. And then indirect services are things that we also need to do with program management. We want to do professional development. We want to make sure we're up to date on the latest and greatest information to assist our students, advocacy, outreach, and referrals. I wanted to give some examples of appropriate and inappropriate activities based on the feedback we've gotten from school counselors and also just that's come down in the past. So appropriate activities would be interpreting cognitive aptitude and achievement tests. Inappropriate would be administering those. So having a school counselor be over something like AP testing. Now we do have the fair share where we work with our schools, and if there's a stipend or something else that takes away that time from school counselors, if they're working on that after school hours and they're doing AP testing or something like that, they definitely can work on that. But they shouldn't be the coordinator for that based on our board rule with the direct services for students. Building a master schedule is not an appropriate activity. Supporting, giving input, helping, all that type of stuff. School counselors are definitely a part of that, but creating and building the entire master schedule would not be an appropriate activity. So we can just kind of go through these. Providing long-term counseling in schools to address psychological disorders in a therapeutic clinical mode. We aren't therapists, we are counselors. We can provide short-term individual, small, large group counseling to students that promote a whole child approach, due to our mindsets and competencies. But again, we're counselors. And we are professional school counselors, but we aren't therapists. So if a student needs therapy or needs to be tested for that, that either needs to be referred out. If the school has a clinical clinician, social worker, a clinical, therapist, then that would be their type of activities. But school counselors are not the therapists. Some other examples of appropriate and inappropriate activities. School counselors do not discipline students. That's not their role or their support. We do support interventions for students who are tardy, absent, or having disciplinary problems, but we do not do the discipline part of that. We collaborate with teachers. It's not appropriate for school counselors to be teaching classes when teachers are absent. During COVID, we all pitched in, we all had to help out, and that's understandable, and we did what we needed to do. But as far as that, regularly occurring, that's not an appropriate activity for school counselors. As we go through this, just different things that school counselors do and don't do. And you're welcome to go back and read through these if you'd like to. I don't want to spend too much time on this. One other thing I do want to point out, however, is school counselors advocate for our students with IEPs and 504 meetings. We attend, we support, we offer interventions, but we should not be the coordinators for those different meetings. We need, the school needs a 504 coordinator, which is usually an administrator, an assistant principal, and then the IEP would go through special ed. And so, of course, we support that. We want to attend, we want to give input, but we are not the coordinators for those. This is the time distribution recommended for school counselors. Again, we're trying to do 85% of our time with direct students services. And so if we have school counselors in the different levels, this is kind of what is expected. You'll notice in high school, the majority of the time is going to be spent on plan for college and career readiness. CCRs, individual and group, those start in 7th grade. So you'll see also in junior high and middle school, a lot of time is spent on the plans for college and career readiness. But in high school, that's kind of where the majority of time is spent. In elementary, the majority of time is spent in systemic approach to dropout preventions with social and emotional supports. And that's because they're going in, and also with the collaborative classroom instruction, they're going in and they're teaching prevention, they're teaching coping skills, they're teaching communication skills, friendship skills, all those type of skills that we want our students learning early on. So elementary counselors are spending a lot less time one-on-one with students, a lot more time in the classroom environment, teaching, supporting, where in the middle school and high school, they're spending a lot more time in the CCR plans. Although high school and middle school counselors also do teach in the classroom, collaborative classroom instruction, and we send out surveys every 3 years. They get information and feedback from those surveys and look at the gaps of where things need to be taught. So maybe a school is saying, hey, we need some suicide prevention skills. So they might go in the health classes and teach that. They might be collaborating with CTE on youth science and going into financial literacy and teaching career literacy and career, CTE career skills and things like that. So we do use data. It's a huge part of our model is to use data to guide where we do our data projects and also where we are teaching in the collaborative classroom instruction so that we can cover areas that might not be covered in our school. And so it's very individualized based on school, based on our climate, based on our culture of the school and the needs of the students and the faculty at the school. That leads us right into data projects. So we do use data to target resources, programs, interventions, and strategies based off of our students' needs. And then we also use it to advocate and provide equity in college and career readiness preparedness. So outcome data is a requirement of systemic practice in the areas of access, attainment, and achievement for student data. And data projects are just one example of a larger data-driven school counseling program, a systemic practice within the educational setting. I wanted to add, if you're not aware, school counselors are required to do a data project each year. They use the needs assessment survey that is sent to students, parents, and faculty in order to guide, like I talked about before, what they are going to do for their data project. They also work with administrators on the school improvement plan and goals so that the data project can support the school improvement plan and the school goals. And so each year as they do their data project, we've asked them to share that with their faculty, with their administration, and also with the stakeholders involved so that parents can see the work that school counselors are doing to promote the school and the school improvement plan and goals. We do have the principal school counselor collaboration agreement. This is a form that school counselors go through and fill out. They talk about what they do specifically. Each school counselor generally has specific duties, alphabet, it might be grade level of students that they're meeting with, and then specific duties like if they're over Hope Squad or if they're the CTE coordinator for the counseling department, or if they're helping with concurrent enrollment, things like that. So they would write those duties And then they write the top 3 gaps that the school counseling program is working to address with the school improvement plan and with the administration. And then both school counselors and administrators sign that form. They place that in their evidence box, and we use that to kind of guide how their school counseling program is being run and just to demonstrate the collaboration between school counselors and administrators. So part of the program is the administrative assurances. And so the support administration support counselors in accessing individual classrooms to deliver school counseling curriculum activities. Administration and counselors meet regularly. They discuss topics to improve student outcomes, identify gaps, looking at ratios, roles and responsibilities. Part of the assurances is school counselors do have a budget, and that budget is being used for the school counseling program. They also do time allocation randomly, just to look at how they are using their time, if it's being used appropriately, if they're using their time mostly for direct services for students. And then administration is part of an annual program evaluation process. So administration, as far as the formal program review goes, the CTE director is generally the person who will oversee that as our funding comes through CTE, and we used to be part of the CTE program. But we do love to have strong collaboration between our school counselors and our administration at the schools. So school counseling licensing, we just wanted to let you know that you do have to have a master's degree in school counseling. I was just going to say, we've had several social workers call and say, can I get licensed as a school counselor? That is not possible right now. Licensing, you do have to have your master's in school counseling in Utah. Social workers can be licensed as a school social worker, and they can work on that path, but they are 2 different degrees. They are 2 different roles. And so we just wanted to kind of make sure that that was clear. School counselors do have to complete a 600-hour internship. They have to pass the school counseling praxis, and they have to earn the College of Career Readiness certificate. That's an endorsement that comes on their school counseling license. Many of us old timers have been working on that or had to get that because that's something new that came recently. Schools that are graduating school counselor students right now, those students are graduating with the College of Career Readiness certificate in Utah since 2020. So just wanted to let you be aware of what is required with licensing. School counselors do support the school-based mental health teams. If we look at the multi-tiered systems of support, school counselors are in tier 1. We are for every student. We meet with every student. We support every student. And then we also do some supports in tier 2 with our small groups, counseling, brief counseling, things like that. Tier 3, we often do referrals. And so we work with the mental health team on those multi-tiered domains. We also work in the academic realm with all students. So we just wanted to make you aware of that. School counselors do support every student. And then we do work a little bit in tier 2 and tier 3 as well. This kind of gives you a graphic of the multi-tiered systems of support. And so if we look down on tier 1, the universal, that's about 80% of students. Again, we meet with 100% of our students with our CCR plans. It's required that we meet individually with them in every grade between 7th through 12th grade, 3 times in those grades, as well as group CCR. So we do meet with all of our students. And then we have tier 2, which is targeted about 15%. School counselors provide consultation and collaboration. We do our small groups, and then we also do referrals to sources. If you look at tier 3, that would be more where you have your clinical, your therapists. That would be school social workers who are licensed as therapists, or your school psychologists who are doing special testing. As school counselors, that's where we generally refer. And so we just wanted to kind of give you an example of the multi-tiered systems of support there, and kind of show you some role definitions there based on school. So if you look at the school counselor, tier 1 is where we live. We love tier 1. And then also a little bit of tier 2. And then we've got the student support teams, that's tier 2, tier 3, and mental health, which is tier 3. Okay, so I'm not sure what that screen is. There we go. Sorry, I had to push a couple buttons. So as we look at the tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3, this just gives you more of an example again of the multi-tiered systems of support, RTI. So in tier 1, we do individual student planning, collaborative classroom instruction, and school-wide evidence-based practices. Tier 2 is peer group services, small group counseling, credit remediation, behavioral contracts. Again, we support on that. We are not in charge of the behavioral contracts, but we do support. And then tier 3 would be interagency referral and individual counseling, which we refer out. We do have resources available for our school counselors and for administration. Updates and essentials training is required every 6 years for our school counselors and our administrators. Generally, this is done the year before your formal review. And so we're back in person. We've done 3 in-person updates and essentials training so far. It's great for new administrators if you haven't had this yet. It kind of goes in depth over the Utah model and the Utah School Counseling Program, as well as more in depth of what your school counselors are doing. And then we also have the USBE School Counseling website, where we have a lot of information. We have these different forms you can go on and fill out the principal counselor agreement. We have the individual evaluation rubric, our data project template, and other information on there as well. This is Michelle and I. We are the USBE School Counseling Specialists. We are happy to offer support wherever needed. We're here to assist our school counselors. We're very passionate. Both of us have been school counselors for many, many years. And we just love the great things that school counselors are doing. And so if you ever need to contact us, please feel free to reach out or have your school counselors reach out, and know that we are here to support you. And now I'll just turn the time over to you if we have any questions or anything that needs to be brought up.